So now what? Save the world?
Anyone could be one of them.
Controller.
Trust no one.
Who am I now? So far from the ground. The world has changed, it's upside down.
Welcome to Thought Speak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of K.A. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. I'm your host, Coleman.
And I am your other host, Mitchell. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fine program on tap for you, don't we, Coleman?
An okay program. And I say that not as a...
Wow, you're really
me.
taking the energy down, man.
No, I
This
just
was
mean...
a big deal.
No, I'm just saying, we talked about this a little before, and, this is our first Chronicles, our first big episode, Megamorphs Chronicles, that we don't have a third guest. It's kind of bumming me out.
Yeah, that is true. We don't have a third guest for this Chronicles book, per se. However, a little later today, Coleman and I have managed to embark on one of our greatest, I think, things to come out of this podcast so far. Coleman, would you like to explain?
Oh, easily. Easily one of the greatest things to come out of this podcast so far. As much as I love talking to you, at 5 p.m., 3 p.m. Pacific time, today, Saturday, February 20th, 2016.
Jeez, get specific.
Mitchell and I will be talking to Michael Grant, co-creator, co-writer of Animorphs.
Co-creator of Making Out, ladies and gentlemen.
Sweet Valley High Teen.
We don't know, maybe.
I don't know. I don't even know if this is the real title. But point is, this is one of my childhood icons. This is the guy... I didn't even know it at the time. I just knew there was this K. Applegate fellow who was writing these books I loved.
Yeah, exactly.
But, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going to be interviewing him for Thought Speak. So you guys will be able to listen to that, I assume, pretty shortly after this one.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll put it online as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, we'll put a little bit of time. We're going to hype it up a little bit. So, but yeah, just incredibly excited to talk to him. Don't even have all my questions ready. Doesn't matter. I'm sure it'll just be a great casual conversation with him about his books and what he's writing now and what he did on Animorphs.
We're not even going to get out real questions. We're just going to sit there and kind of squeal like little girls for half an hour. Mr. Grant, you remember that time when Marco morphed into a gorilla? That was awesome.
And another little update. I don't know if you've noticed, but do your Thought Speak hosts just sound just quite a bit better? Do they sound
Coleman,
smoother?
You can't possibly be thinking
nicer.
about tooting our own horn.
Oh, I'm
on the fact that we recently purchased some upgrades for our equipment.
We did, and we didn't even ask you, the listeners, to pay for it, like so many other podcasts.
What? We could have started a Kickstarter and been like, hey, everybody, pay for us to entertain you. We didn't do that.
If you guys want to start giving us money, A, we'd really appreciate that, and B, we'll set that up. Just ask.
Oh, dude, we're starting a Patreon eventually.
Yeah, we will. But, or maybe we should just lock the Michael Grant episode behind a paywall.
Oh, there you go. Subscribe to our Patreon coming soon, and then you'll unlock the Michael Grant interview. Ooh.
No, we would not do that. We will have that for everyone to listen.
Yeah. I mean, it's always going to be free for everybody. There's plenty of Mitchell and Coleman to go around, people.
Mm-hmm. But just wanted to let our listeners know that no, do not adjust your radio. Us sounding 100 times better is because we upgraded our equipment so that we could bring you a better podcast. We think it's important that Thought Speak grows and gets better since we think a lot of people are turned on to us now and really getting into the earlier episodes. So I want them to hit episode, what is this, 27, 28, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, I want them to hit this episode and be like, oh, they care about me. They care about my ears and what I'm listening to. So.
At this point, I will say I honestly prefer people to not listen to most of our old episodes based on that fact alone.
Just skip the invasion.
There are at least a handful of episodes where I sound like we recorded on a tin can. And for that, I am ashamed and apologize, but never again, folks.
Man, a few of our early episodes actually have an audio interference issue where it pops every 2 minutes or something like that. And back then, I was just like, oh, well, the content's still good. I don't really know how to fix that.
We're still doing our job, right?
Yeah, so, now that we're about to get into the terrible ghost-written books, I'm glad we were able to improve our podcast.
Exactly. That's really what counts. I mean, we've got like 60 more episodes to go anyway, so they all better sound good.
Hey, the point is, by the time we get to the end of the series, which is what everybody's waiting for, our shit's going to be on point. So
we will be masters. We will be broadcasting live by the end. It's going to be Thought Speak Live.
Oh, we should do a live episode. That'll be our elevator pitch for our sequel series to Animorphs.
There you go. But let's move on with the show here. Today, we are reviewing the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, as you probably saw from the episode title. Big book, as always, all these Chronicles books are. So let's see. Starting where we usually do, we talk about the covers. And this is a bit of a conundrum here because Coleman purchased a hardcover Hork-Bajir Chronicles, which I wasn't even aware existed, so that's awesome. While I went ahead and got the softcover version, and there are some differences. Coleman, you want to describe that hardcover?
Well, first off, the hardcovers are weird in the Animorphs series, that they're kind of random. I saw a hardcover book of number 32, the one where Marco turns into a poodle. So they're just completely random on which books got hardcovers, apparently. And the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, it's the only other hardcover I have. The other one I have is my original Visor Chronicles book.
Yep, I've got the Visor hardcover as well.
Yeah, that's a very pretty book.
I like it, yeah.
So my hardcover, I had a dust jacket as well. I don't know where I set that down, but it's the exact same as the actual cover. And it's, you've got forward-facing Hork-Bajir and, Andalite Princess.
Right.
On the front. She's not really a princess, but, you know how it is.
She's like a Disney princess. It's princess by association.
She's the closest thing we have in the Animorphs series to that. So, I've got them just looking at us on the cover with some
they're like chilling
space behind them.
Making eye contact. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, all 6 eyes.
All 6 of them.
No, that's not how many there are. Yeah, there are. There's 6. Okay.
We did it right, man. Don't worry,
and,
you got it.
You got a cool font for Hork-Bajir Chronicles. It's kind of neat.
That is a little bit different than the regular font we're used to.
I like the coloring too. It's kind of like a beige, brownish for the lettering and the kind of framework of it all.
This book cover is one that you could carry around and people might look at it almost kind of funny, but they'd be like, okay, it looks like a sci-fi book, Not like the other books in the series where people look at them and kind of judge you.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd still get judged for this. But that's
Sure.
just by the people who wouldn't appreciate like the classic 80s style sci-fi covers.
Right. It does kind of feel like a throwback to the older sci-fi covers where they're just kind of plain, honestly. It's 2 characters looking at us with some space in the background. Also, we are reminded that we can, but we don't necessarily have to, watch Animorphs on TV.
Oh, I don't have that.
Yeah, they crammed it into my cover.
On the back of mine, I have just one part of the huge Vista print they made for Hork-Bajir Chronicles, where it's both of them looking out over a dusk setting with the giant trees in the background. And
yeah, that image that you're describing there actually appears in the soft cover as just the in-cover image, like, in the normal books where it would be. Really cool. It's like the first full body shot we got of a Hork-Bajir standing next to an Andalite with a couple other Hork-Bajir off in the distance climbing a tree that honestly looks more like a rock than a tree, but whatever. And then there's a little bit of a quote on the inside like there normally is. They say that terror is in the deep.
And, do you want to get into this Hork-Bajir issue I have right now, or do you want to wait?
Let's just talk about the back cover. You said your back cover is that. Mine is actually a picture, and this is kind of cool. It's solid space, right, with the Hork-Bajir planet on the back.
Really?
At least I believe it's the Hork-Bajir planet. And that's where the summary of the book is written within the planet. Pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and maybe we should read the back.
You're going to have to do that, because I don't have one.
Oh, you don't even have... Well, don't you have the summary on the inside cover?
No, nothing.
Oh, boy, Coleman, pull up a chair and let me tell you a little story. The story of the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. He is called Dak Hami. His people believe he is a seer. that he will be the one who will show them the truth. Her name is Aldrea, daughter of Prince Ciro, daughter of the Andalite who was ultimately responsible for the rise of the Yeerk Empire. Their story begins on the Hork-Bajir homeworld, before the invasion, before the terror, before the Yeerks. The story that came before Animorphs.
Ooh, prequel territory.
The Hork-Bajir. I'm honestly, I got chills reading that.
I did too. I got goosebumps.
Dear
I've
listener
got 3
at home,
Goosebumps books right over here.
I got goosebumps. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom popped up next to me.
Yeah.
It was the random one that I could pull out at the top of my head.
That was quick.
I know, there's
Anyway.
lots to choose from.
Yeah. So I mean, so that it's a good looking cover. Kind of just stands out from the other Chronicles books and obviously the regular series.
Definitely.
They really went full hog with this redesign.
Yeah, you want to pitch a fit about the Hork-Bajir design and them finally settling into the canon of it kind of here and just what your own images of it had been. Take it away, Coleman.
Yeah, and we talked about this early in the earlier episodes, but I mean, with those mics, I don't even know if you could understand what we were saying back then.
Right.
So we're gonna have to recover a lot of ground. So, man, it's just not what I imagined. The first book, I mean, it does describe them like this. I've gone back to reread it to make sure that I wasn't crazy, but for some reason, I pictured the Hork-Bajir as just much more ape-like. I don't know why. I don't picture the long snake neck, even though, yes, that is described. I don't picture their blades being so reptilian and big on there. And they look like iguanas in this final design, kind of.
Yeah, you know what? I will back you up here by saying that if they hadn't added in the keywords, the search words, snake-like, or, reptilian, anything like that, I agree with you. I never would have pictured reptilian. That image wouldn't have popped into my head either.
I mean, for some reason, this is my own fault, but for some reason, I always pictured, like, taller, more muscular versions of the Gamorreans from Return of the Jedi. Like, the guards in Jabba's palace. I always pictured, like, those with blades all over them.
Okay, that's an interesting image. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners probably have their own mental images of what the Hork-Bajir should look like. And, dear listener, if you want to tell us what you had imagined, please fill us in on our Facebook page, on our Reddit posts, anywhere the conversation can be found.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things you picture different. I think I always pictured the Andalites pretty similar to how they turned out in the artwork.
Well, Andalites they're centaurs. Centaurs with stalk eyes.
Blue centaurs, yeah.
If you really want to get in depth, you tell people they don't have a mouth.
Except the tails. That's the only thing that I don't still like about the designs in the book so far. I think the tails are too clean blade looking. They're like you stuck I don't know, some kind of actual like tool blade on the end of their tails.
No, I'll give it to you, especially on this inside cover image. The way Aldrea's positioned here makes her look like her tail blade is like sticking out. I mean, it's sticking out in an area that I didn't picture the blade to be in. I figured the blade would be at the very end of the tail, like the blade would be the tip. But the way it's pictured here, it looks like there's a blade right below the tip of the tail.
I always pictured like a more straight, not super curved, but has a little bit of curve to it, and very like looks like a natural horn or something, just incredibly sharp.
Right. This looks more like a talon or something that is attached to the end of their tail. Really.
What'd be cool is if there was a difference between like a wild Andalite, like Andalite savages from like the Limnus Chronicles, and modern day Andalites, where they like hone their tail, they sharpen it, they take care of it, put oil on it, stuff like that, so that it was almost like a black. You ever see those like rhino horns that have been like cleaned up and shaved down for selling as almost like jewelry and stuff? Like,
no,
really
I try
dark.
to avoid people like that.
No, when I'm at the poacher's black market and I'm, like running my hands over the dead elephant calves, you just notice these things. And so no, I'm just saying, like, I pictured almost samurai-like behavior from the Andalites with their tails, like something they really take care of.
That's a really cool image. That would be a very cool. I mean, I think you should tell that to Michael Grant.
No, I read specifically. Here's the thing. I was even gonna think about pitching him on our sequel series ideas and stuff.
Let's save that for like interview number 3 maybe or something.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying like I specifically read in his Q&A on Reddit he just did where we asked him to be on the show. If you're following along, he actually mentioned that when people sent them ideas, because some kid called him out and said, "Hey, I wrote Kay Applegate a letter, and she used my story ideas in the next book." And he said in response to that, we specifically didn't read plot ideas or things submitted by people because you run into that. That's too much of an issue. If they ever do want to go back to Animorphs, I wouldn't want there to be a Thought Speak episode where we pitch him specifically on our ideas, because it's just unprofessional and it's not needed. It's unsolicited, and unless he asked us to do that, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, well, let's avoid it then. I wanted to point out...
Or do it anyway. Let's just do it.
You can't make up your mind with this thing, can you? I just wanted to point out the fact that, Andalites talk about how they're hot shit because of their tail blades, but if you look at the picture of the Hork-Bajir, he's got his own pretty snazzy tail blade right there with
double
2
tail
blades on it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hork-Bajir tail blade kind of makes the Andalite tail blade look like a toy. Really?
Well, a girl Andalite tail blade.
I suppose, yes, this is the female. I'm sorry I can't run across the room right now and grab my Visor book to look what Aileron's tail looks like, but...
I didn't necessarily want to bring this up, but the artist of this image, I think they focused a little too much on the Andalite butt. It's very well defined and thought out, is all I'm saying.
Okay, there is something I would like to point out about this image now that we're talking about butts and sexual stuff. It really, the way that this Hork-Bajir's tail is positioned, why would you think this was a good pose for him?
Not the tail at all necessarily, but just the
legs too, the way they bend to look.
Well, how close they are, and it's like she's backing up into him. And...
Oh no, yeah, she's totally backing up. Like it looks like she's sitting on his knee almost.
And the fact that he's got like the V, like the male cleavage, right there. And
right.
I actually just learned that. That's what for my wife. She told me that's male cleavage. That V.
Sweet.
She told me that. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, if you just look at like the leg shape, the back Andalite leg shape, and all that, it just looks like a bent over woman. And then there's this giant monster behind it. I'm just saying, these are observances that we're making.
We're trying to tell you, listener, don't stare at the image for too long. And if you're under the age of like 14,
put a piece of tape over it for the kids.
Okay, we've dissected this cover.
A little too much, some might say.
What say we peer inside the covers?
Sure. I definitely want to talk about this opening and how we got these bookends with Tobias.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, we get a little opening scene with Tobias, very much like he was in book 23, just kind of hanging out, doing his thing, and decides to go check up on the Hork-Bajir for some reason. For some Ellimist-like reason.
Yeah, well, he just feels like he needs to go there, and he's kind of depressed, and it starts out well, and then you get into the Hork-Bajir. It's so weird. So they had to deal with... They wanted to obviously tell this story. They wanted to talk about the Hork-Bajir and tell this Vietnam parable that we know now is what it really is. And it's interesting that they had the issue of, okay, we want to tell the story about Hork-Bajir, and we want the Hork-Bajir themselves to tell it, so we need to make up a couple things in the Hork-Bajir mythology to make this work. Because you can't just have this broken language species running around. You wouldn't be able to sympathize with them very much. They obviously wouldn't be able to tell a very good story.
No, but we have had hints, I believe, peppered throughout from some characters about the Hork-Bajir having this more intelligent seer throughout their people and their history.
Really? Where have the hints been? I haven't noticed any.
I believe Axe mentioned it in one book. There may have been more to it as well. But I know that we've had at least a hint or two about the Hork-Bajir having some kind of intelligent gene that only shows itself every so often. I think Axe mentioned it one of the times they were
I can see him saying...
He did his little Pokedex entry on the Hork-Bajir for him.
Yeah, I can see him saying something about an aberration in the Hork-Bajir species.
Yeah, like there's a mutagen that made them smart.
Which I actually really like that from an evolutionary standpoint, which obviously we know is not the case. But I like that idea that a species that doesn't need intelligence has like this slip that can happen whenever there's a feeling of need to communicate with another species. They can, pump out one of these super smart ambassadors for a species.
Sure.
That's a really cool sci-fi concept.
With equal parts science and Ellimist, anything is possible.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got Tobias heading to the Hork-Bajir Valley. It's like raining, so I guess that's his reason for not being able to leave. It's getting dark and it's raining. So the Hork-Bajir...
And he's a hawk.
Jerahami sits him down and is like, yo, I'm going to tell you my story. You didn't know I could do this, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, this is another weird thing that happens, is that apparently when they have to pass on... This also fits into the whole seer thing, in that when they have to orally pass on their heritage and their history, they go into this trance and just like tap into that function of their brain.
Sure. They apparently get smart enough to tell the story, but, I thought since they were going to introduce Toby in this book... we get a brief glimpse of him, by the way, as Tobias is flying into the valley. He mentions he sees a young Hork-Bajir running below, and that is Toby.
That's not a boy, though. That's a girl. Toby is a girl. Well, you said he.
Whatever. Toby.
Okay.
Toby. Why didn't they just make Toby tell this story? I get that Toby's
that
not
made a lot
old
more
enough
sense.
quite yet, but in book 23, Toby's going to war with him.
Yeah, I think they wanted to make it a reveal at the end of the book. Like, that's the satisfying ending.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. It's supposed to give the reader hope and all that at the end that, a seer for the Hork-Bajir is capable of so much, and now we got one. And
it's kind of
thinking
scary,
on it
too.
now,
It's
book 23 was kind of a disappointment for Toby.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a cool cliffhanger, too, in the sense that you hear the story about a seer being born because shit's about to go down on the Hork-Bajir homeworld. It's cool that at the end you're like, wow, that was a crazy story. You guys went through a lot. And the Hork-Bajir are like, oh, by the way, we got another seer. Be afraid. That kind of like sets up that something big is happening again, that one of these seers were born.
I suppose. I guess I hadn't thought of it quite that way. Of
That's
course,
what
we
I'm here
already knew that shit was going down anyway. Yerks are invading.
Well, I know. Well, yeah, but it gets bigger than that. Yeah, the Yerks are invading another world. It doesn't matter. That's a Tuesday for the Yerk Empire,
Apparently, this book also reveals Yerk Empire is not quite as old as at least I'd imagined it.
Yeah, me neither.
Seeing as how freaking like Alaron was around basically for all of it.
Not to pull too much politics into our podcast, but it's very similar to like ISIS, where it's one day they're just some rebels who we maybe throw some weapons at and help out. The next day, they turn into a serious enemy. And look at this. This book was written
that's exactly what's happened in the Middle East, and that's the exact same situation as the Yerks.
It's the exact same situation. We gave them technology, and
It's
now they're
turned
running
worse.
rampant.
Oh,
and
man.
they're an actual country state at this point almost.
Right.
It's crazy.
And there might be ISIS members among us. Oh my god, dude, they are the Yerks.
They're 100% the Yerks. ISIS is the Yerks, and Michael Grant and Kay Applegate are prophets. I'm calling it right now.
We need to ask Michael Grant how to stop ISIS.
Oh my gosh, and ThoughtSpeak, we're seers. We were born in a time that needed us.
We are the prophets. Oh boy, this goes deeper than we thought, people. We better just get into the Hork-Bajir Chronicles proper, because this story's starting out with this was kind of a great intro actually. It starts out exactly as you said with Aldrea, the main character, the protagonist, watching her father Ciro, as he's kind of trying to explain himself. And the Yerk uprising basically happens right in front of our eyes. We witness Ciro's kindness. That's how this book starts out. It's great.
Which is amazing. Again, me and Mitchell have not read this book.
Oh, exactly.
So-
yes, these are all the questions we've always wondered.
Yeah, it's amazing that we go back and see this. And I just want to say, is there any Animorph story that's about Andalites or references Andalites that doesn't start on the deck of one of their ships? Like, that's where every single one starts.
Well, if you think about it, that is like 95% of where most of them spend all their time.
It's true. I'm just saying they start the same way. Every time.
Right. Well, they're a very war-bound race, you know? They're kind of the dicks of the galaxy, really.
Oh, they are. Which is why
The Andalites
sequels...
are the America of the galaxy.
well, no, you can't. Now I can't say what I was going to say, because now it sounds unpatriotic. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Nope, it's too late. Messing it all up. Russians are the chi.
I was going to say, in our sequel series, first thing we would do is blow up the Andalite homeworld.
Oh,
Just saying. It'd be like Vulcan being destroyed in Star Trek.
yeah. Anyway, moving on, man.
Hey, Chronicles are where I get to go tangent crazy. So,
Like I said, Aileron's in this whole thing from the very beginning. He's there, pretty much berating Ciro, and I think it's even him who coins the term Ciro's kindness. He's like,
yeah, he says it offhandedly. It's a
he
pretty cool
name
line.
drops it. He
Mm-hmm.
you could see him drop the mic after that. Ciro's kindness burn. Yeah, Aileron's basically just yelling at Ciro for letting the Yeerks, get a hold of technology, get a hold of some Ged bodies, get a hold of some starships, and fly the hell out of there.
Yeah, it's cool that you have this intro that shows us the scene that we've always wanted to see and we've heard about, and then you go into this kind of time skip. Aldrea's a little older, and it's a not as big of an event. This family is kind of on the fringes of space now and being sent off far away where they can't really mess with anything again. They're leaving in dishonor.
Lost in space.
Yeah, and they're just off to kind of try to create a life that's not as big as what they left behind.
Yeah, that the short way to explain it is that they're in exile, basically.
Yeah, it's not like an official exile. It's like not Ciro was sent to a prison world or anything.
No, but you get it's heavily implied that, they're the laughing stock of the Andalite world, and that life is basically over, so they're going to stick us out here on this little backwards planet and give us the task of watching out for Yeerks, or at least that's what they say they're there to do. That and study the native species.
The Hork-Bajir?
Yeah, the native species.
The Hork-Bajir?
As far as they're concerned, that's the only species worth examining at this point.
Yeah, and even then, once they start talking to him, you can tell that that her father is really disappointed in the lack of intelligence. Because that's why he was so ramped up about the Yeerks and so excited about them, was here is a sentient species that intellectually can stand almost toe-to-toe with Andalites. And that's why he gave them so much and gave them technology and all of these things, because he was excited about meeting an ally.
Sure.
Or a possible ally.
Sure.
So the Hork-Bajir are a huge disappointment to him.
That makes total sense, yeah. I guess he probably had his hopes up a bit, and then when these large, lumbering, scary-looking creatures come out, and they're actually very simple and quite docile, yeah, I could see his hopes being dashed to bits there. He pretty much gives Aldrea the task of just talking to him. He's like, oh, these guys are idiots. F this, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. This one's a kid. You go talk to him. And
Yeah.
it just so happens the Hork-Bajir that runs into him first is Dak Hami, who we get a chapter from his perspective. Really cool. I'm glad that this book jumps back and forth between three protagonists. Well,
Yeah,
two protagonists and the antagonist.
Exactly. But it's nice to have that little chapter with him to start out with, so we can see that he feels like he's chosen for something. Everybody around him is dumber than him, but they keep telling him he's chosen for something, and he kind of just doesn't know what to do.
Exactly. And the very first chapter we have with Dak Hami, his speech patterns are very, very simplistic. Like how we have the Hork-Bajir kind of currently in the series. But the more he talks to Aldrea, the more intelligent he becomes, since he's the seer. And by the end, or not even by the end, by the next chapter, he's like a completely different character. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. And it's great how it kind of explains that and describes it, and how he says it's almost like an awakening. Like he just sees so much more of the universe and possibilities just from talking to her a few, sentences. It just opens him up to so much.
Exactly. Like he didn't even know what space was.
Exactly. And it makes perfect sense to him once it's explained. That's how intelligent and how much possibility there is in his intelligence.
Right. Oh, I would like to point out that the first 2 chapters, the rest of them don't do this, but the first 2 give us kind of like a little information bits before the actual start of the chapter, where we get the Andalite date. We found out that the year in the Andalites' year was 8563.5. So the year 8563 and a half in Andalite years. The Yerk date is generation 686 early cycle. That's how they keep time.
I always liked that. I thought that was a nice
I
touch.
love the Hork-Bajir date, late cool. they go by seasons. And then good old Earth date, this all happened in 1968. So not long ago. Here's the thing. When the Andalites first came to Earth, had this war, I'm talking like book 1, it made it seem, at least to me, that this war between the species had been going on for like hundreds of years, like a long-standing war. This book gives the vibe that it's very much a recent thing that's just starting to happen.
Yeah, like last 50 years.
Yes,
You know.
exactly. Like we said, Alaron, who is Visor 3, has been in it from the start. This poor guy.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like that or not. I mean, you could see it 2 ways. You could see it as that's how dangerous the Yerks are. They were able to get this many footholds this quickly. So I see it from that angle, but I kind of wish it was a longer rivalry between the Andalites and Yerks. I wish this had been going on for like a couple centuries or something, and this is where they are now.
Well, yeah, you know, and I guess future books could take that approach, but unfortunately for now, this is just how it is, fans.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on.
Yeah,
We-
she really just teaches him about the universe and kind of expands his mind.
Mhm.
We do get introduced to the Yerk antagonist, Esplin, which is it never sounds right to me when I say it
doesn't.
out loud.
he's a great Yerk to take his perspective from. I wish they weren't as heavy-handed with the insinuations of who he was going to turn into. You know, I'm just a Yerk obsessed with Andalites, and I know all about them. And someday I'm gonna have an Andalite body. I'm gonna be the first one. You know, it's like that. It's like that Gotham series. Have you watched any of that?
No.
It's just like they have a guy on there who works for the police department. His name's Edward Nygma.
Oh, yeah,
And
that guy.
Oh, stop your riddles, Edward Nygma. You crazy Riddler. It's like it's a little over the top.
Prankster, you. Sure, I get that. But actually, I liked this a lot because it showed this diversity between the Yerks that is really only hinted at throughout the series. I mean, back in book The Departure, I'm blanking on her name now, told Cassie, that there are Yerks that don't want to be part of this invasion and this infestation. And it really is hard to believe them at that point. But here you clearly see Visor 3, Esplin, is the one of few Yerks who are very excited about the prospects of getting new bodies and expanding this Yerk empire and being more than just I love the scene where he's first, and in fact this first chapter that we're introduced to him, he's getting his first Ged body, and he describes what it's like to basically look down with eyes and see where you came from, and then realize that there's so much more beyond what you think there is. And that was kind of like an awakening for him. Whereas a lot of other Yerks he described finding the sensation terrifying. And, a lot of Yerks said, oh, this isn't for me. Clearly, I need to be back where I'm comfortable. But he was the Yerk who definitely was like, I gotta go as high as I possibly can. So, that's Esplin. That's Visor 3. The Yerk that we know is going to eventually become Visor 1 and be the big bad of the series.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about this book is it kind of makes me wish there was. I know we get a Visor Chronicles, but I almost wish there was a Yerk Chronicles.
Oh, definitely.
Because I loved all the info of them starting out, creating the Sub-Visor and the Visor platforms, for their...
Yeah, the hierarchy is
the
basically created throughout this whole book.
And I love that the Council of 13 has always been. That's the oldest ranking they have. And just everything that goes into the Yerks building their empire and deciding things and taking technology and combining it to create Dracon beams and
Right. Oh, yeah. The way that they changed the Andalite technology to become Dracon beams later on. I really liked it explained how they apparently do have computers that they use as Yeerks. I guess they're in the Yeerk pool, and they use them with their palps. We don't have, at this point... Well, actually, we do have a pretty good image of the Yeerks if you open up the book, because that is the transformation in the bottom of this. Is that in the hardcover?
My transformation is... What? Hold on.
It's a Yeerk.
Yeah, it's a Yeerk to a... I never checked it out before. A Yeerk
It's a Yeerk like to a monkey. It's a really weird one. It's a Yeerk turning into a monkey, turning into a Hork-Bajir, and then an Andalite.
To an Andalite, and then at the end it's a human.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. But you do get to see what the Yeerks look like in their natural form. And it does look like they've got some little fins or something.
That looks like the model for Jake there at the end. I don't know why.
Yeah, actually, it does. I think that might be. I love the fact that we get to see, how the Yeerks began, how the big bad of the series began. We're learning more about the Yeerks' history and technology. All good things. Mm-hmm. And, Esplin is convinced that it's his destiny to join the war and learn all he can about Andalites.
Yeah, and back on the Andalite homeworld, Aldrea and Dak are...
No, not the Andalite homeworld, friend.
Sorry, the the Hork-Bajir homeworld.
We're not used to saying it.
We're not. We never go there.
Oh, in fact, there is a point in the book that specifically points out how... oh, man, I thought I dog-eared it, but I guess I didn't. There's a point where the Andalites are talking about it, and they don't even give the Hork-Bajir homeworld an official name. They just call it the Hork-Bajir homeworld.
Yeah.
A little disappointed we never got a proper name for it.
I assume it'd sound like Klingon or something. It'd be like, Hork-Bajir.
Well, going by their other terms for things like Jubba Jubba, Galilash, and Gorks, yeah, it's probably not going to be that great of a name.
But anyway, so Aldrea and Dak are just bonding it up, and she shows him this new technology that not that many Andalites have, which is the morphing technology. Which, again, not to be too critical, but that fact that we get and we just created the morphing technology.
Right.
It's like this book is going prequel as hard as it can.
I know. This was a surprise to me, to be honest, because all along, first, I had been imagining that the morphing technology was just a natural ability of the Andalites. That illusion was shattered partway throughout the series when they introduced the Escafil device. Now, drop this bomb on us that apparently the Escafil device had just then been invented, and most Andalites weren't even aware of its existence. Somehow, Aldrea has got access to it because she explains her friend's parent worked on the technology or something.
Is possible, at least, because before her father was, he did Sierra's kindness and was shamed and all of that, and he was probably one of the top officials of the Andalite homeworld.
Sure, yeah. It makes a lot of sense, actually, and my one gripe is that we just didn't get... it seems like that could have been a chapter in its own, If Aldrea had her own book besides the Hork-Bajir Chronicles and not the other one that comes later in the series when she comes back. If she had her own book, I think we'd have seen a chapter of her going to her friend's house, being introduced to the morphing technology, and probably trying it out then and there. The fact that she waits this long to try it for the first time is what threw me off.
Well, I thought she said that she had tried it once, and that's it. So this is only her second time morphing.
Did she say that? Well, I'm not sure. She was definitely very unexperienced. I know that.
Yeah, and I think it would have been neat to kind of almost recreate the scene from the first book where after her family is killed, spoilers, maybe her dad in his dying breath showed her the Escafil device that he had and gave it to her, or something like that. That'd make a little more sense for this child having morphing technology that's brand new.
Sure, there could have been a lot of explanations, but ultimately this one was the quickest.
Ultimately, this one, hey, my friend had one, and we were all passing it around.
Yeah. So I took a hit of the Escafil device and
Turned
what do
into
you
a
know?
bird.
I can morph. So she finds a creature called a Chadu.
Chadu.
A Chadu. It's like a Pokemon.
Chadu.
It's like a kind of mammal-y creature that also climbs around the trees in the Hork-Bajir homeworld. Harmless kind of creature. It's just good at navigating trees, and Aldrea, being an Andalite, is obviously no good in the trees, and she wants to experience it like Dakami does. Like George of the Jungle does.
Yeah. And so they're running around, and Dak actually takes her back to the tribe tree, which is just massive, way bigger than any of the other ones.
Hey,
And,
baby, you want to
she's-
see my tribe tree?
And she sees the deep.
Yeah, this is where we're introduced to the concept of the deep.
Father
And-
Deep.
And I mean, what's in the deep? Well, terror is in the deep.
Monsters. And I just want to, I assume people have been talking about this. I haven't seen anywhere online, but we're not going to be the first ones to bring this up. A lot of parallels to Avatar here.
Avatar, yes, James Cameron's Avatar.
Yeah, like a lot. Giant tribe tree that's bigger than all the other ones. Some of the mystical elements of this story are very similar to kind of like, the tribe and Avatar and how they like connect to the forest and things like that. I don't know. It's just
I guess these are very common themes, however, throughout science fiction. So on a much broader scale, things like those we're not going to be that original.
No, and I'm not one of those people who shits on Avatar. I think it's an amazing movie that people are way too harsh on. Same thing. Every James
I
Cameron
had a good
movie
time watching it.
Yeah, every time James Cameron comes out of a movie and it blows up, you have to have people who are contrarians who are like, I don't even like it. It's just a rip-off of Dances with Wolves. Well, so are like 100 other movies. If you want to tell
Sure.
us, if you want to tell a story about tribesmen, there's only so many few ways you can go.
Exactly. We get another Esplin chapter in which he's given a new body, and he's finally upgraded to Hork-Bajir. And the difference between Hork-Bajir and Ged is like day and night. There's a cool quote where he's like, I thought I was seeing before. This is seeing. Like, because the Ged's eyes, everybody knows, are bad.
Yeah, of course. I had an eye appointment today and got new contacts, so I've actually experienced this today.
There you go. With his new Hork-Bajir body equipped, Esplin is straight up like, hell yeah, we're going to take this Hork-Bajir homeworld here and make it awesome. Oh, by the way, the Yeerks are on the Hork-Bajir homeworld now. They've captured some of them.
Yeah, and it's I thought it was a good idea, like how, he's obsessed with Andalites, and you bring that into the story that, they want to know, well, if we try to take this home world, what kind of resistance are we going to have if the Andalites find out? And so he's brought into the story, and that's why he really goes there.
These Yeerks got really lucky that they just happened to land on the Hork-Bajir homeworld. I want the book where the one Yeerk unit that stole an Andalite cruiser is like shooting off away from the group, like, we're going to go find our own world, and they get stuck on a planet that's just absolute shit, and they all die after like several weeks.
It's like that butt dimension from Rick and
From
Morty.
Rick and Morty, yeah. It's just a bunch of butts farting everywhere. Yeah, let's steal Rick and Morty's jokes, Coleman.
Let's immediately, and
We should. Everybody go watch Rick and Morty. It's so good.
it's amazing.
Yeah, they're on the Hork-Bajir homeworld, really. Esplin's chapters don't really advance the story so much. They're just kind of about, introducing the Yeerk history and technology.
Yeah, and yet there's some of my favorite parts of this book.
Oh, definitely. I'm not saying they're not important.
Mhm.
Don't mishear me. Dak and Aldrea, however, hear from these things called speaking trees that the Yeerks have finally arrived.
The speaking trees are a cool idea. That's a really cool idea.
Oh, definitely. It was really awesome in the way it was described.
Well, yeah, they had that's how they communicated, like, tribes of Hork-Bajir. They had these giant hollow trees that they would bang on in different ways. It was like drums in tribesmen, they had these giant trees that they would hit certain ways and it would communicate to other tribes that there's danger or something's coming or there's food,
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where Aldrea, runs home to try and stop her father from sending off his nightly report, because the Yeerks are, sitting in orbit and they're going to like intercept the thing. So she's running home to try and stop him from doing this, and it's going to fail astronomically.
Oh, this is straight out of the first Star Wars movie. You know, Luke running home because he thinks his aunt and uncle are in danger, and then finding their skeletons.
Yeah, basically. The Yeerk Esplin and another Yeerk character that may or may not be important, whose name is Carger, is also there. They move in and basically attack the Andalite family with their ships, blow them the hell up. They blow their whole scoop up, and all the family members. It's worth mentioning, I guess, that Aldrea was there with her dad, mom, and brother. One of the more funny lines, I thought, was when Aldrea was talking about her family and her brother, whose name is Barafin. Barafin believed me, but he didn't care. Barafin was becoming depressed by the Hork-Bajir planet. There were no other Andalites to recreate with. And of course, Andalites cannot climb trees. So she basically straight up says that her brother is mad because there's no chicks there.
Well, yeah, and her brother is just like, there's no girls around. He's on his computer all the time.
Yeah, he's on his computer, like, fapping furiously to Andalite porn. If anybody needs me, I'll be in my bunk.
Don't come in here! Oh, this is a weird episode we're going to have for our listeners. It's
great
this
time.
followed by the very prestigious Michael Grant interview.
It's a wacky hour here on ThoughtSpeak.
Anyway.
So her brother probably died fapping it, to be honest. They're blown the hell up, and it's obviously a terrifying moment for Aldrea, who basically just sits there and watches helpless. And it's Dak Hemi who's like, we gotta get the hell out of here. This is no good. And he's just learning these concepts of like fighting and war. Like he doesn't get it, you know?
Yeah.
She has to tell him like, we gotta run or you're gonna die.
And I really like how Esplin is in this specific chapter, because it's him saying, okay, I know a lot about Animorphs. I know a lot about Andalites. You know, they really needed to separate those words when they wrote this book, or these books.
Make it more diverse.
They needed to. But anyway, so he says, I know a lot about Andalites. They're not all going to be in there because they don't hang out inside their scoop when they don't have to. Like, his knowledge of Andalites is coming in factor here, and the other Yeerk just doesn't believe him, and that leads to Aldrea surviving.
Sure, yeah, and they even have to get down on the ground there and fight with them a little bit, because this is where Dak learns how to fight. Like, he didn't have any concept of that. Aldrea had to be like, use your blades, and then he kind of realizes, like, oh yeah, I'm sort of a badass.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
And they're Aldrea's, obviously very torn about what they need to do, and she's really kind of effed. From this point, I was like, what is she gonna do? This is a tale of loss here, because there's absolutely nothing she can do at this point. She's stuck on an alien planet with no way. Well, there is one way to contact her homeworld, but it ain't pretty.
And she's not aware of it, so.
At this point, yeah. Because her mind is just so clouded. But Dak is able to convince her that they need to go to Father Deep to kind of hide out for a while. Or rather, that's her idea. Dak actually wants to go around and sort of, confer with his Hork-Bajir people. But Aldrea's trying to convince him that, no, we should just run. They'll understand. You told that one guy that everybody needs to run, so he'll go tell everyone else.
Yeah.
That's what she's hopeful.
Well.
And
they're in the mist, and they're heading into the deep. And, obviously right here, all you've heard is that there's monsters and terror here. So you're waiting for something to pop up, and something does.
Yeah, except it's the Yeerks again.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, they show up, they're still running, you get a little action scene.
Yeah, there's monsters in the deep, obviously. One of them, called a Jubba Jubba, kind of, sort of shows up. I mean, like, the description it gives makes it seem like it's not the full creature, but I guess it is. It's just sort of shaped like a hand or limb or something.
I thought it was described as we're just seeing its arm reach out and grab people, and we're not seeing the whole body.
That's what I thought too, but I mean, that's a Jubba Jubba, and they describe him later, and it didn't seem like it was any difference. I don't know. Point is, Aldrea fights it off a little bit. She manages to, and they escape it. But instead of going back to save everybody, they're like, we gotta go further into the deep. And as you tend to do when you explore unknown areas in alien planets, they wind up finding an ancient civilization.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Esplin is taken back to the Yeerk ship and gets, yet again, another new host body. Because his other one was torn apart, right?
Yeah, he got his ass kicked there by.
Oh, he was
Dak.
paralyzed. It broke his back.
Yeah, and I really liked the chapter where, he talks about, like, I had to sit here in this body with my, everything below my waist was severed, and I couldn't move, and I just had to sit there for, like, 3 hours until they found me. It's pretty crazy.
It's really interesting. And meanwhile, he's just thinking that entire time, just starts becoming obsessed with the idea of taking Aldrea's body.
Yeah, this is where you see the obsession really start to form and peak. And he wants himself some young Andalite female body.
I think that's the point of this whole book. Everybody's going after that. Hence the cover.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, and, they did turn it into a kind of sort of love story.
I have my
featuring-
comments on that, too.
Sure. Hey, man, it's
We'll get to it in a minute.
it's Stockholm Syndrome, okay? Basically.
No, it's not. Anyway, so they wake up the next day, and they end up, finding this ancient civilization.
Yeah, the introduction of these guys called the Arn is handled very strangely, I thought. The way that they reach their place, and it seems like they're ruins. At first I thought they were going to be ruins, and then they spend the night. Then they wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden they wander in a little bit, and these Arn are everywhere. They're like little things, I think. They're very small, and there's a lot of them.
Very Arn-like.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know how to describe them other than they're small, they walk all over the place, and they don't give a damn about who's in their way. They've got their own problems. We'll go into it later, but for right now, they're dicks, kind of. They're very dismissive of these this Andalite and this Hork-Bajir in their midst, even though they'd never seen an Andalite before. I was like, how would they not want to fucking study this alien?
I think
But
they're
no.
just so concerned with what they're doing, their job,
Exactly.
keeping this world running.
They're so single-minded is the problem. But basically, they have to kind of threaten this one Arn, whose name, I wrote it down phonetically, is Quatsinakon.
Quatsinakon. He sounds like a Decepticon or something.
Yeah, it does kind of. I thought it also kind of sounds like a Native American name. Quatsinakon.
Quatsinakon? Okay, we're getting a little racist.
Was that racist?
I think we're getting a little racist.
And he basically just tells them all about the Arn, everything that they've done, which was pretty much everything on the Hork-Bajir planet. They created like the whole balance of this planet, the Hork-Bajir, the trees, all the stuff that's in the deep, which is designed to keep the Hork-Bajir out of the Arn's little civilization. And this is also where we found out, or where Dak finds out, that the Hork-Bajir are basically these artificial tree-tending beings that were created.
Yeah, I did not see this twist coming. I
No,
don't remember hearing the spoiler from anyone over the years or anything.
No, here's the thing. I heard people say the Hork-Bajir homeworld and the Arn, like I've heard the Arn mentioned, never knew the context. And this is quite the context to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly interesting. And it's even, I don't know, to me, I think this is one of the best parts of the book is, hey, main character, here's your god. Start talking to him. It's like, this is who created you.
Yeah. And it's so awesome that, I mean, they really went into the science of the whole, like, reason why they had to do this all, because the trees produce a very specific type of air supply that they can breathe, and it needs to be in the right balance and proportions and everything. And they are obviously not going to tend to their own trees for their air supply, so they mass produce these Hork-Bajir creatures to do it for them.
No, it all made sense. I mean, to a race that is obsessed with genetic engineering, which that's interesting. That's very alien. To that be their main kind of focus. This all fits. All of this fits into them trying to save their world, and it's all very logical. I really dug it.
Yeah, well, in part, I mean, it's not really even science fiction. I mean, this happens today. We selectively breed creatures specifically for purposes very much like this.
Yeah, look at South Carolina.
Was that a political joke? I don't.
It was one of the last states that had they were still doing genetic, not engineering, but manipulation on people.
Oh, good to know.
Boom.
After Quatsinakon lays out the whole kind of planet's backstory, Dak basically, he doesn't really skip a beat. Like you said, it would be great to have this whole, oh my god, you're my god, kind of conversation. But there's this whole situation going on with the Yeerks that Dak is so worried about. He really kind of takes all this into hand and uses it as a bargaining chip, basically, saying, well, if the Hork-Bajir are so important to your species, you got to help us deal with these Yeerks, because they're going to be a big problem. And the Arn just don't give a shit.
Yeah, they're kind of like, I don't know why I'm making so many Star Wars references today, but in Episode 1, how the Gungans didn't think that the invading army was their problem because they were hidden under the sea. That's kind of what the Arn are dealing with here. They're kind of like, something happens to the Hork-Bajir, they get taken or whatever. We're not going to be affected. We'll just make some new species to do the same thing.
Right, and here's the thing that I don't get is, how can alien species be that stupid with the amount of technology that they possess? It seems like any foreign entities landing on your planet that are as intelligent and packing the same technology, if not better technology, would be something you'd want to deal with. These are straight up dismissive.
I think
even when the Yeerk invasion is full on in the later chapters.
I think a regular story point and a message that a lot of movies and TV shows and books and stuff have tried to say is that advanced technology does not necessarily equal intelligence.
You know what? In fact,
wisdom, for that matter.
I want to point out, I think Applegate's missed an opportunity here that when the Yeerk invasion started full on the Hork-Bajir world, they could have had a chapter or just snuck it in one of the later chapters where the Arn were like, well, I guess this whole operation's ruined. Peace out. And then launched on a spaceship out of there. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
But instead they just stand by passively and do nothing.
Well, because they're so obsessed with their own planet. I mean, look at this. This is a race whose planet was destroyed. And
right, they have a long history.
They're obviously obsessed with staying there, to the point where you have space travel, and instead of finding a whole new planet that your species could live on, you go back and live in these crevices that you found a way to, make livable.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to the whole air supply problem. I don't remember. I didn't commit their whole history to heart, but I remember that they had problems with their breathing on several planets that they tried out, and this was their best solution, was to just make a planet that fits their exclusive breathing criteria.
Yeah, and just to put this out there, since their whole technology is based around manipulating biology, I assume their spaceship is just some giant space whale that farts its way into the atmosphere. They'll just climb inside.
That would be awesome.
Very Doctor Who-esque.
Yeah, Beast Below. Anybody?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where are we story-wise? The Arn are being dicks. We're cutting back to Esplin, who is explaining how easy it really is. While Aldrea and Dak are hanging out, the Yeerks have the easiest time ever taking over the Hork-Bajir homeworld. I mean, we get it from Esplin's point of view, where he's describing how quickly they're spreading to all the tribes. And the Hork-Bajir are so stupid, they can't do anything about it. They don't even realize. It's so easy. It's not at all like the human invasion.
Yeah. So one day, he's chilling by the pool with his twin.
Thanks for reading it verbatim from my notes. I wanted to say that and be all funny, but you reading it, not funny at all, is even better. Yeah, Esplin's describing how he's chilling by the pool, the Yeerk pool, with his twin. It's nice that we get a little mention of his twin.
Yeah, just he's a twin because 66 is on his part of his name, and that identifies a Yeerk as having a twin.
Sure, yeah, exactly. As the readers who listen to the warning know.
Yeah.
Listeners.
And so out of nowhere, I think they had knocked over one of these speaking trees and were creating a Yeerk pool within it, which is cool.
This is a really cool process where they knocked down this huge tree and then hollowed it out, I guess, kind of, or turned it into a big bathtub, basically, with a lot of different pools in it.
Yeah, and so out of nowhere, Dak and Aldrea, apparently they really, really put the Arn to the hammer and
Oh yeah,
gained control of an army of these Father Deep monsters.
they're all mind controlled. I mean, this struck me as like, okay, as soon as they ran into like this ancient civilization, like before the Arn revealed themselves, I was like, where are they going to go with this? You know, because if there's not a civilization there, they can't really do much if it's just Dak and Aldrea.
Mm-hmm.
And this basically proved my point. I mean, the Arn weren't going to help, but they gave the guys or gave the team some mind control devices to assemble this little army of creatures that they used to defend the deep. And I read that list to you before, but I'm going to do it again. Besides the Jubba Jubba, we also got the Galilash and the Gorks and the Lurdathak. All real things.
Oh, and I want to point this out. I'll take this tangent now. I don't know if it's all of them, but I got the feeling.
No, they all have ridiculous names.
No, shut up. I get the feeling, and I'd have to go back and check on this. Maybe some readers can confirm this for us. I feel like at least a few of these were Visor 3 morphs that we've seen in the series so far.
Lurdathak sounds very familiar.
The one with the vines from Jake's book when he morphed a jaguar?
Yeah, that's this one.
Yeah, that one
the
is
monster
definitely.
called Lurdathak.
But I think a few of the other ones too. One of them, they even make a reference to having picked up a Hork-Bajir and bitten him in half. I feel like the Jubba Jubba might be what Visor 3 turns into in the first book to eat Elfangor.
Really? The three-fingered monster that... I don't know.
The way it was
That's all
worded...
they say about the Jubba Jubbas. It's a three-fingered monster.
Maybe not the Jubba Jubba, but one of them, the way they worded it killing a Hork-Bajir, it sounded like it was trying to make a reference to something. And
well, you know what?
I really felt like it was the first book.
Ask Michael Grant about it later.
Yeah, like he might remember that specific thing.
Hey, were you making a reference there?
Hey, on page 147 of the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. But a big part of this that we skipped out on, too, is the fact that they're kind of having all these Hork-Bajir follow them, Aldrea and Dak-Hemi, and Aldrea told all these Hork-Bajir to watch Dak and do what he does.
Yes, exactly.
And they're
That's
chanting this as they're marching towards the Yeerks. It's really cool. It's a really neat scene. Translate really well to a live-action movie.
It would be spectacular in an animated series, yes. But yeah, like you said, they do have a little band of Hork-Bajir raiders, kind of. Not a lot, and their numbers quickly dwindle here. But they Dak is kind of showing all the other Hork-Bajir how to fight, and like you said, you know, they're really getting into it, and it's very very strange behavior. Meanwhile, while the Hork-Bajir are fighting the controllers, Aldrea happens to make it inside a Yeerk stolen Andalite ship, and she tries to call home.
And when I read this, I was so mad that she didn't lock the door when she went in the first time. I knew someone was going to come up behind her. And I was just like, lock the door. You're in the middle of a fight. People are going to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, of course, Esplin gets in there, and he tries to fight her, and she morphs a Jubba Jubba, which is enough to do it.
Yeah, and she does manage to get a call in.
And she reveals the morphing technology to the Yeerks, who'd never seen them before.
And I mean, I'm surprised he didn't have a bigger reaction to it.
Is it safe to say this is Aldrea's kindness?
Sure. He almost gets her body there.
Yeah.
I thought for a brief second, like, oh man, maybe Visor 3 is going to have like an Aldrea body for a very short period of time or something, but no. Nope.
No, it was really cool though. But now we get this cool little time jump where they spend, they leave, they were successful, they got called into the Andalites, but the Andalites tell them, we don't know when we can get there, and Aldrea doesn't really know if the paths in space had changed, so it might take longer for them to get there.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors basically, and they have to spend seven months hiding out, basically training their little army in their guerrilla warfare. But they're quickly losing the war as the Yeerks are expanding, their empires taking over pretty much the whole planet by this point. By the time the Andalites finally show up, the war is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much lost. And, of course, they're complete and utter dicks to Dak right off the bat because, like Andalites tend to do, they judge him as an inferior being, less intelligent, blah, blah, blah. Andalites are so damn haughty.
Yeah, and there's two really cool parts of this that I think play into the series overall. First off, if you had been reading the books, just in their order, and you hadn't read anything after this, really, really cool to see what you've wanted to happen in the main series this whole time is the Animorphs to show, or not, damn it, the Andalites to show up. It's really awesome that it's like, oh, this is what we've been waiting for. The Andalites are going to show up and save them, just like they will the humans on Earth. And the Andalites do a horrible job, don't bring enough people, and, obviously what they're about to do is crazy. But,
right, yeah.
But
you get
the second part,
the impression that the Andalites are just completely scattered at this point.
And the second cool thing about this is how well it's mimicked in the end of the series. How the Andalites show up and they have the conundrum of, well, why don't we just wipe off Earth off the map? They deal with those questions in this book well before the end of the series.
Oh yeah, dude, this is foreshadowing to the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Not the extreme, the book, but the extreme. Just
later on, we will foreshadow the extreme.
It's coming up quick, actually.
Here we also find out that the Yeerks are creating some sort of blade-like ship.
Yeah, again.
that resembles a Hork-Bajirs blade. It's a blade ship. It's the blade
get
ship.
it? Does everybody get it?
Aileron is there. Once again, he's the one who returns. Aileron is, pretty prevalent throughout this whole series. He comes back and tells them, we're all kind of screwed because Andalite ships aren't coming for a very, very long time. He lays out the situation flat out, how scattered the Andalites are currently. We jump back to Esplin, who is quickly working his way up the system. He's made it up to Subvisor 12, and he is still leveling. He's just been kind of leading his charge, doing his thing. The characters are still hanging out in the Arn civilization. The Andalites are there as well. The Arn are still trying their best to ignore everybody and stay out of the plot.
Yeah, and again, like we said, the Andalites showed up with a not a big enough force.
No, so they're very much having to hide out as well.
Yeah, and so they sent out for reinforcements, but like they said, everything's changed, and it's going to take twice as long for even the reinforcements to get there. So the Andalites are often kind of their own little corner, like figuring out how they're going to win this war, and they're starting to keep secrets from Dak Hemi and Aldrea.
Yeah,
it's getting a little intense, a little tension there, just a little tension.
Well, you just look at the way that they treat Dak, and it looks like America in the 1950s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like some sort of alien.
I'm saying there's some racism, buddy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some, they're fighting this war, and technically the Andalites are on the side of the Hork-Bajir, but more so they're just on the side of the Andalites and doing anything to screw over the Yeerks as possible. Right,
yeah, that's their modus operandi here. And as soon as Dak finds out that they're hiding stuff from him, specifically behind a big door, he immediately suspects Aldrea, and we should probably mention that Aldrea's had quite the character arc. At the beginning of the book, I will say she starts out as a very unlikable protagonist. She often makes the wrong decision, and she's just kind of a dummy. But it's at this point where Dak Hemi has formed his impressions of her that, Andalites are all about their people, and that's ultimately all she cares about. And he even accuses her of this, and they have a bit of a falling out until she's like, no, you know what? I'm with you all the way, and I would die with you, and I'm going to fucking prove this to you right now.
And she has a streak, I think even more so than Axe, which I kind of like, that she's full on Andalite. I mean, she will lie to you to manipulate you because her people are all that really matters. And even in this moment, we find out later, in this moment, saying that she'll die with him, she doesn't really mean it. She's just trying to get him to help her.
Right, yeah, again, at this very point, she's like, okay, what have I got to do now to get my little servant buddy under control? But once they get inside the lab and discover what's actually been going on, she does have this very important change of heart.
Yeah, it's a faltering in the greatness of her species, and not realizing that they would go this far, that they have changed and aren't the noble race that she believes them to be.
The Andalites, much like humans, sometimes can be dicks. And we have to go through quite an ordeal until we learn.
The universe is full
inside.
of dicks. This is the Animorphs, what it's really trying to pose on children in middle grade ages.
Sure.
You know, don't trust anyone. They're probably creating a virus to wipe out your family.
It's what I work on in my spare time.
Speaking of which,
Exactly. This, it surprised me, but that's only because I forgot that they talked about it earlier in the series. They've mentioned this virus before, right?
oh, I was waiting for this. I knew this was coming the entire book. I was reading it.
Well, yeah, and I had managed to put it to the back of my mind and forget about it until the point where they mentioned, oh yeah, there's a secret kept behind doors. Then I was like, oh yeah, the virus.
I mean, I don't see how you could forget this when this is like the entire reason Alaron is a war criminal.
Well,
in the
yeah,
Andalite
and that
Chronicles.
was also a big part of it. This is, how Alaron basically has his fall from grace.
Mm-hmm.
Poor guy, dude. He's just had it rough.
Just rough. Poor guy.
He really is,
Yeah.
You get worn around like a Halloween costume year-round every day. See how you feel.
I feel like that's his penance. Thank you very much.
Sure. There you go. Aldrea, gets wind of this plan and is like, oh, hell no. And she takes the virus. Kind of a risky move, but she takes it. It's in a convenient little carrying case, so why not?
And just in case you're one of the few people who are reading or listening to this series and not reading the books along with us and just love our voices, just think we're the best. This virus is specifically engineered to wipe out the Hork-Bajir race.
Oh, yeah, it's a
thought
biovirus.
process. The thought process is that if we can take the host bodies away from the Yeerks, the Yeerks are less powerful. So here's one way to do it.
Yeah. No, it's a solid plan, aside from genocide and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes sense. It is the ultimate way to stop your foe. But,
It's a dick move, is what it is.
Vietnam was bad, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, that's what you should be taken from this book.
Where are we? Oh man, we are so close to the end. We're getting there. They steal the device and they're like, well, we got to destroy this thing. That's the only way we can really ensure that, the Hork-Bajir aren't destroyed in this way. And they get out of there. They just run. And this is when, we're really coming to the climax. The Yeerks start to invade with all their big fighters and their blade ships. And they're forcing Aldrea and Dak to basically flee from the Arns city once more. However, in their last, kind of battle here, Aldrea is going to finally morph this female Hork-Bajir that she acquired a little bit earlier on in the book, which you knew was going to happen later.
Yeah. The second it happened, I was like, okay, here's how they're setting up the Romeo and Juliet portion of this book.
Sure, yeah. That's very much what it is. Aldrea finally... And, I like this, ultimately. As weird as maybe we'll think it is, ultimately it makes sense for these two people. I won't even call them aliens. I won't call them characters. I'll call them people. Two people in this moment that feel what they feel. She can become a Hork-Bajir. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I would love this, and I actually do love this in the context of the book. I just wish we hadn't already seen it before, in another Chronicles book.
Yeah, but romance is important, Coleman. They gotta put some romance in here somewhere.
I never realized it's this book series is very prominent. The kind of pushing of the whole interracial thing, which I guess because of when I was born, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. That needs to be pushed. But when this was written, I guess it was still pretty taboo for there to be a lot of interracial relationships. So that's why this series pushes it so hard.
I would take it a little bit further than looking at it as a simple romance.
You mean looking further than skin
story.
deep?
Sure. This is really a story about two beings that feel like they're the only ones of their species in this place. Aldrea is the only Andalite on the planet, and Dak-Kamee, he says himself, he's not like the other Hork-Bajir. He's his own thing. So they're both isolated souls here, essentially. And they're in such a desperate situation that, feelings happen. Coleman?
Yeah, you just have to explain it to me sometime, I
Well,
understand.
after we're done recording here.
Okay, thank you. But anyway, so yeah, they even kiss. It's crazy. They're falling in love.
Well, I don't know about that. I think they both know they're pretty boned here at this point. They even end up getting caught by Esplin, and this is the part where he almost manages to get inside Eldrea, but he is stopped.
By what?
That's not in my notes, Coleman. He's stopped. It's a struggle. Things are happening.
I just wanted to call you out on that.
Yeah, I know you did, Dick. Don't be like the Arn. Moving on.
The heroes take control of the ship and
they
win.
Foiled Esplin here, and the heroes have taken control of the ship, but they end up crashing anyway. See, that's the thing. They're in a ship, Coleman. They're flying around. They're crashing.
Yeah, things are happening. They're doing barrel rolls. Who knows?
It's like Star Fox here.
Yeah, and so didn't it say specifically that Esplin gets like thrown into a river or something?
Yeah, he gets. Yeah, he does get.
It's
thrown
like
out
the
of the
go-to
ship.
way to save a Yeerk in the book series. There's a nearby stream. He got into it.
Oh, that happens. That happened before in the first Axe book.
Yeah,
if you
where
recall.
Axe morphs the snake to try to kill him.
Yeah.
Yep.
The exact same. It was probably the same river.
Mm-hmm. And well, welcome to my review here later on here a little bit.
Sure. Well, the good news is the heroes managed to survive this little spaceship crash conundrum. However, in the accident, the container of virus may have sort of been breached.
I pictured it like the bottle of ooze in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, exactly.
Cracking open.
Yeah, just like that. and okay, this is such a great scene here because they crawl out of the wreckage of the ship and they're like, "Oh, cool, we're alive, yay! Oh shit, what about the virus?" And then there's like one other Hork-Bajir who's like, "Hey, is this what you're looking for?" And like they describe what happens to him. He quickly, dies. He like disintegrates basically, but
Yeah, it's a hell of a virus.
I know, yeah, exactly. It would have been a very funny visual gag if they'd done it right.
Luckily, Aldrea's trapped at this point, right? She's an Nothlit.
Yeah. This is where she basically decides, well, screw it.
Yeah, and
Hork-Bajir for life.
Mm-hmm, and they're both downwind, thankfully. So they just start running from the virus. This book basically turns into the happening.
They managed to save a few remaining free Hork-Bajir, but they're basically on this dying planet, and that's the end, really, of the story. We know where it goes from here.
Yeah, it's a cool way that you can do an ending and wrap things up without actually
Showing
writing.
the characters' deaths. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very I like these kinds of endings. It becomes a tragedy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great place to leave off here, even though we do get the little stinger. But I will go ahead and assume that for the rest of their days, Dak and Aldrea basically did it Hork-Bajir style.
Yeah.
Till the end of days.
And yet another character is born of multiple races.
Exactly. Kind of. Sort of. Wait a minute.
Yeah, no, it is. Technically.
Okay, sure. The stinger here at the end is, Tobias, who has just spent the entire night in the Hork-Bajir Valley listening to this story. I guess it took all night.
Yeah.
And Jeremy is just wrapped up telling the story. And this is basically the point where he kind of turns to his daughter, Toby, and is like, "Oh yeah, by the way, new seer right there."
Yeah. It's a cool reveal at the end. It's like, and another seer has been born, which, like I said, leads to like the, oh shit, what's going down, that another seer has to be born to lead the Hork-Bajir.
Yep, exactly.
It's a cool ending of the story.
It is. And like I said, I'm almost kind of disappointed now at, Toby's interactions in The Pretender that we just got done reviewing.
Well, she's just starting out. She's a new leader. She doesn't know what she's doing.
Oh no, I know. We need more Toby, basically. And we'll get it. It's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I almost wish they would have done more with the free Hork-Bajir than what they did at the end of the series. But,
sure,
maybe they'll do more with them in the Ghostwritten books that we just don't know yet.
It's possible. You never know. But that is the wrap-up on the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. Wow. Good book.
Yeah, it's a really good book. And if you don't mind, I'd like to jump right into my review.
No, man. Take it away.
Okay. So, I mean, I got in a little trouble with the Animorphs community for my last review of The Pretender. People weren't thrilled about that, but this book series and us reading it is about critique. It's not really, we're not really trying to reach out to Michael Grant and Kay Applegate, although we are, and tell them what they did wrong or whatever. This series was written perfectly for what it needed to be at that time and for who it was for. This is an amazing book series. We're just not interested in sitting over here and being nostalgic for, 75 episodes and just waxing off on the series. So we're going to pick it apart a little bit. And in Hork-Bajir Chronicles, I have a bit to pick apart. I think it borrows a ton of elements from former books, especially the Andalite Chronicles. You've got this interspecies relationship. You've got the staying in morph so that you can be one with their race, so that you can be in love. And even though I like that they did the love story differently in the fact that they weren't truly really deeply in love. It was like this really tight friendship that they didn't trust each other all the time. It was a war relationship. You could actually talk a lot about Cassie and Jake's relationship based on this one. And the fact that so much of the story in general is pulled from this Vietnam analogy. It's an incredibly interesting book, but I think too many elements we've already seen in the series. And maybe this is getting into the ghostwritten books. I mean, this is where they started running out of ideas and they started pulling from what they've already done. I don't think it takes away from the story that much. I noticed it quite often. And the other thing I didn't really like about this book is how badly it's trying to convince you that it's a prequel. It's like, oh, we just created the Blade ship, and oh, the Yeerks, they're just spreading out, and they're doing this, and oh, we just created Subvis. Everything with the Yeerks and creating their hierarchy and starting out the Empire is incredibly interesting. I just didn't wish it happened 40 years before this book took place. And there's just so much that is just so hitting you over the head with, do you see what we're doing? Do you see what we're doing? We take place before the Animorphs, It got really annoying. That said, I think this book is excellent. I think it's incredibly interesting, and I think we get a lot out of it that we want to hear about the Yeerks and starting out in this war and how it started out. And for that reason, I will give it 4 out of 5 prequel Blade ships. Yeah,
okay.
I think
that makes sense.
I think it's still really, really good. I just had to knock off a star for my little qualms.
Okay. Is that all? Have you spoken your piece?
My piece is spoken.
Well, you're pretty right on. I mean, this is, like we said earlier, all the questions we had before, having not read this book, were answered here. We got to see a lot of it. The whole start of the entire war. Ciro's kindness. We see it all. Like you'd mentioned, I do wish we had a separate book for that. A lot of the issues that you pointed out between the similarities of this and other stuff that we'd seen before, I guess I'm willing to excuse it a little bit more, just because I know that the time crunch that they were working on these things, they were basically putting out book after book after book after book, month after month after month. They basically made this series their life. And when you're in that kind of scheduling crunch, you can't give things the amount of thought that you would necessarily if they were releasing, say, one book every year. I mean, the series would take forever, obviously, if they were doing 63, but point is, I think maybe just because of time constraints, they weren't able to give the level of thought that we were hoping for in this long-spanning story about an intergalactic war, and they made the time frame, a little unstable there. I don't think that's the story's fault necessarily. Walking away from this thing, I felt really good about reading it. I enjoyed the whole thing. It managed to throw some surprises in there. The characters, the protagonists, I should say, Aldrea, for not even being a likable protagonist, you at least had Dak there, who was likable, and kind of picked up the slack for Aldrea. And I'm very glad to see that Aldrea had that very much needed change of heart at the end, which kind of really sold you on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship thing doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think it's only natural, in fact, for just sentient life forms to find some kind of connection and have that in such a disturbing time that makes it so much more real to me. I don't think it felt forced. That said, I mean, I had a great time reading this whole book. I didn't have a lot of problems. The only problems I pointed out were the ones along the way. The Arn, I thought, were kind of unrealistic in their narrow-mindedness, not caring about all these foreign aliens suddenly landing on their planet, thinking that they're not going to disrupt their precious ecosystem. That part was very unrealistic. I realized why they did it because of the whole backstory, which is very cool and very important, but I feel like they just missed a little bit of an opportunity there with the Arn. Regardless, man, I devoured this book, had a great time with it. I thought it was everything essential you need to the lore and understanding the history of Animorphs. It's all right here in this book. I think it's essential reading, honestly. If you're going to reread the series, this is something you would want to include. Unless maybe you're just trying to get to the end as fast as possible. In that regard, this would be the exact opposite of it, in that it is the book that takes place in the very beginning, aside from the Ellimist Chronicles. Walking away from it, though, I felt really good. I give it a 5 out of 5 Jubba Jubbas.
Ooh, Jubba Jubba. I will say that the most interesting thing about this book is that it makes you care so much more about the Hork-Bajir, and especially the free Hork-Bajir, because you see that from the beginning, from literally their creation, the Hork-Bajir have just been used. And they were used by the Arn. They were...
Yes.
They were...
That, exactly.
Yeah, they were used by the Andalites. They were completely, the entire race, taken over the Yeerks. And the entire race is just a slave to the Yeerks now. It's a pretty sad idea that this race never got a foothold for themselves.
Exactly. You really get the sense of how screwed over these poor Hork-Bajir are. Like, when we go forward here, maybe for the next book, probably not for the rest of them, I might feel a little bit more sympathetic when they're like, and then I slashed this Hork-Bajir's throat. I'll be like, oh, that was probably like Tim Flimflam or whatever.
He had a little plushy Jubba Jubba growing up. Well, now I'd like to do something that we haven't done in a long time. And I'm surprising Mitchell with this, too. He doesn't know I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull out...
It's like a proposal?
I'm going to pull out some emails.
Emails?
Yeah.
With real questions?
Yeah, we've got time for a few of these. Then we need to jump off here because we got a little interview with Michael Grant, creator of the Animorphs.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah. So, real quick. So, first off, I got Jacob Rosenberg with a Tobias question.
Ooh.
Hey, guys. Huge listener. I just finished listening to Book 18 with Axe. Good job, and keep it up. I have a question for you that I've thought about for a while. Don't you think the Kansas song, Carry On My Wayward Son, is basically Tobias in a nutshell? Think about the lyrics. Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high.
Yep.
Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think I was still a madman. I hear the voices when I'm dreaming. I can hear them say, carry on.
Carry on, my wayward son. There will be peace when you are done. And by the way, I would like to point out, what was the guy's name?
Jacob Rosenberg.
Jacob Rosenberg. I saw your comment on Reddit. I saw it. Yes, I thought of that instantly. As soon as I saw your comment, I thought, yeah, this song really does describe him. And I do listen to that song quite frequently in my car.
He thought that was interesting and would love to chat more about Animorphs with you too. Keep up the good work. And then he gave me like way too much personal information, like phone number and email and all this other stuff.
Okay, well, you know what? Here, I will go one step further, and I will say, if "Carry On My Wayward Son" is Tobias's quote unquote theme song, I would propose a theme song. Well, I would like to propose theme songs for the entirety of the team, but I just don't have that prepared. But right off the top of my head, I could say the Yeerks theme song should be the song I Could Walk in Your Mind by The Cell. Or The Servant. I'm sorry. The Servant. I Could Walk in Your Mind.
Yeah. Well,
you can tell by the title of the song.
Yeah.
It's quite fitting for the Yeerks.
Exactly. So
listen to it on your own time.
So now we got an email. This is the only other one because it's kind of long. From Toby Goldstein Holm. So we got a Toby here, right? It's very good for this episode.
Perfect.
His subject line was huge fan. Hey guys, I just finished pretty much marathoning through everything you guys have released. I drive 3 to 4 hours a day pretty regularly for work, so it's super excited to get started on the show, and I'm quite sad at the slower pace you guys have been going at for the past 4 or 5 episodes. I know real life gets in the way sometimes, but I assure you, there are dedicated people waiting desperately for 23, so we'd already released that. We're good on it.
Oh, fear not, Toby.
Yeah. So
you're a seer. You've seen this anyway.
Yeah. So, and we're, I think we're going to be on a pretty regular schedule now, probably. But I'm in the same boat as you guys when it comes to the series, though I'm a couple years younger than you. He's 23. I was still reading them all the way through to the end. At one point, I owned every book other than number 49, which was a big one to miss since that's where they get discovered and all that. Anyway, point being, listening to the show has been a fantastic way to look back at the series and enjoy it. I'll be honest, I really missed the longer format you guys used at the beginning. I think for book 13, the show was almost 2 hours, and that was great. Well, it's hard. It's a little hard for us, Toby. If you would like,
That's true.
we can put out shows regularly, or we can have 3-hour episodes. You got to pick one. It's
It's actually very easy for us to have 2 or 3 hour long episodes because we can talk that long to each other. We have no problem doing that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to skip a couple paragraphs of his email, but he says, anyway, best of luck and everything, guys. I'll see you on the sub. He's user Merkin, and I can't wait until the next book. Regards, Toby Goldstein. P.S. Whatever episode it was where a fan said it was hard to find the email address, they're right. Took some searching. It's pretty standard to have it in the footer of the webpage. Might be worth just dropping it there. I have to listen to the end of the episode to get it. Well, I'm sorry, Toby. Maybe we should put that somewhere else. I guess.
No, I will not concede to this. Screw you all. The info bits are right there on every single page. If you go to our website, they're there. You can find it.
That's a good point.
It is not hard to find our website or our email address.
People just aren't reading the actual subject matter of each episode post, I guess.
Well, that or maybe people just genuinely don't know. We have a website, people.
Yeah.
It's thoughtspeakcast.com.
Well, he knows we do because he says that we should put it in the footer of our website. So I don't know why he had a hard time.
I don't know why anyone's having a hard time finding this.
Either way, Toby, we're glad that you're listening to us. Definitely don't mind giving you a shout on the show because you've been sending us a couple messages, and we're really happy that so many new people have come on board just in the last few episodes. So hopefully they're enjoying the podcast, and they're going to enjoy it even more now that we're getting into the ghostwritten books, have some better audio, and are about to, interview the creator of the book series. So,
hell yeah! And you know what? If we ever have time again to read emails, keep sending us emails, people.
Yeah, we've gotten a few. I just wasn't reading them because I was trying to keep the episodes down to a reasonable time.
Well, you know what? I will say you read them very quickly and efficiently there, my friend.
Okay, well then maybe we should keep it up. Do us some more.
Maybe. You know who I miss? Craven Airgeist. Where'd he go?
Oh yeah, there's a few people who don't comment on Reddit anymore. It makes me sad.
What about Narrative Casualty?
Narrative Casualty commented the other day, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, see, we're getting to know you people. I mean, it's almost like we're a community or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's not up to... I know that our podcast isn't going to make Animorphs popular again or bring it back, but I feel like things like what we're doing are the road to getting like a movie or something. It's more people talking about Animorphs again, getting their friends interested. You guys...
It's building the hype, and it is getting the word out there about Animorphs and trying to make it a thing. It is literally our version of Jihad. That's what it is.
Oh my gosh. What is
wrong with you? Getting the info out there.
What is wrong with you? No, it's our version of, they're making all these movies about the 80s toys and, 90s series and books and remaking this and remaking that.
Oh, gosh.
If you want a sequel to Animorphs, if you want a true Hollywood Animorphs movie, we gotta build this thing back up. We gotta invite people to the subreddit. We gotta, not be complete nerds and scare everybody away from it. So,
exactly. We have to do this right so that they don't do it wrong.
Because they're gonna somebody's gonna get their hands on the property eventually, and they're gonna
it's only a matter of time.
And they're gonna try to make some money off it. So we can either be a voice in that and try to have some control over it, or we can just wait for it to happen and then complain about it.
And hope that it's good.
Yeah.
Hope Michael Bay turns it into something worth watching.
Yeah, it's Roland Emmerich's Animorphs.
Ugh.
Anyway, so I think we're gonna wrap this up because we got an interview to do. So if you want to shoot us an email, if you want to talk to us, it's thoughtspeakcast@gmail.com. Our website is thoughtspeakcast.com. You can hit us up on there. We have comment sections, all that. We're very active on the subreddit for Animorphs. That's reddit.com/r/Animorphs. And we have a Facebook page and a Twitter. We have all these ways you can reach out to us. I'm going to start reading Twitter's tweet messages on the air as well and everything else. So,
ooh, good idea. By the way, all of this information conveniently found on the website. Check it out. Seriously. So serious. You're a hardcore fan? Really? Check the website.
Thoughtspeakcast.com. Also, yeah, and we mentioned in the past that that Mitchell is on another podcast. That's the Talking Evil Dead podcast, where they talk about Evil Dead.
Heck yeah, homie. Ash vs. Evil Dead, brand new series, talkingevildead.com. Coleman, why don't you tell them about your brand new podcast idea?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying your all's podcast, especially now that you're getting into the movies. But yeah, we have me and my friend Kyle, who also went to film school with me and Mitchell. we are about to launch a brand new podcast called Tokyo Lives, a Giant Monsters podcast. So if you're a Godzilla fan, like old school into the old kaiju films, if you like new stuff like Pacific Rim or Cloverfield, or the new Godzilla movie, or the new Toho Godzilla movies that are coming out.
Basically, if you like giant men in costumes trashing model city sets, this is going to be your thing.
Our tagline is literally, we'll discuss anything over 50 feet tall. So, so hit us up. We're going to be on Tokyo Lives Cast, TokyoLivesPodcast.com.
Okay. Yeah, you don't need to plug that just yet if it's not actually available.
Oh yeah, don't go there yet. Well, by the time this is up, I'm going to have some content on there.
You should. Okay.
Yeah, so we're recording one of the first episodes tonight, so we'll get to it.
Excellent. Perfect. Good. Plug it all you want, my friend.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, look forward to that. We'll announce it proper when you can actually go there, and there'll be multiple episodes and everything. But anyway, so we'll wrap this up. Hope you guys enjoyed our Hork-Bajir Chronicles episode. I know we were really looking forward to this one, so I hope it turned out well for you guys and you enjoyed us talking about it.
Definitely. We're so excited. And you know what? Moving on here, we have ghostwritten books. We have books that you and I have never read. In particular, we are moving on to some Helmacrons, which I have never experienced. You have? Not this book, though, right?
Yeah.
You said you did.
Helmacrons read this next book.
Yeah, I know, but I thought you said you read the second Helmacron book, not the first one.
I'm pretty sure I've read the second one. I don't think I've read the first one, but maybe. Who knows? Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah.
You'll find out with us, dear listener, as we review book number 24? 4? I can't see it. I can't see it.
It's 24.
It's across the room.
It's 24.
Yeah, The Suspicion.
Next time on ThoughtSpeak.